Corinne. Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm well, Angie. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining us. It's so fun to come together in these settings and just meet different people and talk about the things that we love.
It really is. It really is. I'm so happy to be here.
That's so cool. So I'm excited to talk to you a little bit that I know of your background, and I want you to kind of fill us all in. Um, you are a best-selling author, and I believe three-time award-winning book of a book called From Anxiety to Love. I didn't want to say it backwards.
You got it. From anxiety to love.
Beautiful cover. Obviously, I'm a graphic designer, so I love that layout.
Thank
Awesome.
you. I can't take credit. It's my publisher who did it, but I love it too. I just think they nailed it.
You did. You definitely did. Okay, great. So tell us first of all, let's kind of backtrack. How did you come to A Course in Miracles, and what was your experience with it like at the beginning?
So I came to A Course in Miracles because I sort of crashed and burned in terms of mental health. I plummeted into the depths of an anxiety disorder my sophomore year of college, which was back in the 90s. And up until that point, I had always been a very anxious kid, but it was kind of manageable. I could kind of, get by and keep things in check. But it wasn't until my sophomore year of college when I was triggered deeply by the death of a fellow student. I didn't know this student, but the manner in which he passed was so sudden, and it was due to illness. It just freaked me out. And I remember just calming myself down to get through the day. But that next night, I woke up like literally feeling like I was punched in the stomach from a panic attack. And I didn't know that it was a panic attack at that time because it was the first time I was ever having it. I thought I was dying. It felt like the world was just caving in on me. And I didn't know if my next breath was going to be my last. It was absolutely terrifying. And I, at that moment, called my mom at 3 a.m., who she miraculously heard the phone ring from across the house, even though she had on earplugs and a white noise maker. And she talked me through it. And she offered her spiritual pathway, which is the Course in Miracles. She offered it to me yet again. I had always rejected it up until this time. I wanted nothing to do with spirituality. I thought it was just rubbish. I shouldn't say rubbish, but I wasn't interested whatsoever.
Rubbish.
And so that was when my spiritual journey began, because I was willing to try anything to feel better, because the way that I was feeling seemed like I would never have normal footing. I would never feel grounded again. So it was kind of a rough entry into the course, but it made all the difference for me, because I live anxiety free now. I don't suffer from the debilitating anxiety like I used to. And it's been a journey in getting to that point, but it's been solely because of A Course in Miracles.
And that's amazing. I mean, it's funny how different things come to you at different moments in your life that you have no idea. That's probably the conversation you're going to have at 3 o'clock in the morning. And like you said, it's rubbish. And I have a teenager. She's 15.
Uh-huh.
Right now, for her, everything is rubbish. Everything I believe in is rubbish. It's like, yeah, mom, whatever. Okay.
Exactly. Yep. Parent trying to help. Nope. Don't want your help. Don't want to hear it. Want nothing to do with it.
Definitely. But it's amazing. And okay, so you came into the Course in Miracles when you started going through it. What was it like for you? Was it something you kind of got right away? You felt something you didn't? What was that?
So if anybody has ever opened this book, because it's a book, that's what it is, it felt like I was reading another language. I was like maybe comprehending 30% of what it was conveying on the pages. However, the 30% that I was understanding hit such a deep chord within me. It sort of felt as if like a light in my heart that was kind of buried in fear. It felt like that light got brighter. And those passages, those sentences that I did understand were so incredibly comforting to me in a way that no other book or spiritual pathway or, answers from therapists, like nothing else ever got to the depth of answering my existential questions, like why are we here, like what is this, what's the point. A Course in Miracles, the bits that I did understand were so incredibly peaceful and comforting to me that that's what motivated me to keep studying. So that literally the relief that I would get. It's like, you know, my anxiety would be up here. I'd read, I'd learn a little bit more, and the anxiety would come down. And it wasn't that the anxiety just got down and like never came back. Recovery is like this. It's up and it's down, and it can be a rocky road, but that's where what I love about this pathway is that it can go so deep. I'm still being led deeper and deeper into this material. I've never put the book down since 1996, and it still continues to open my mind and my heart and bring about experiences that help me just develop such a sense of trust in the universe and in love. And, you know, I am just so incredibly grateful for the pathway.
Okay, we're done. Yeah, I mean, so I've talked about it in other videos, and I've talked about it before with clients and with people. There are times that I read it that I'm like, you're right. It's like a totally different language.
Mm-hmm.
What is this? And I can notice I've just spent half an hour rereading the same paragraph because sometimes it won't come through. And I learned to breathe with it and be like, okay, whatever. And a word or phrase, just like you said, here, there, I'm like, okay, I'm good with that. Then there are times or there are lessons that I can get it. Like I'll read it and I got it. And it's like, I'm on board. I got it, you know? And then I'll come back and be like, yeah, no, I'm gone. And that's what I want people to understand. I mean, what year did you say you started?
1996.
1996. X amount of years ago. So I'm not great with math.
A while ago. Yeah.
Right, a while ago.
20 something.
Right. And you still feel this connection and you understand the power of it. And it's not like, definitely it's not like a novel that you just reread again and again. It's, I think, very wisely titled a course because you do study it in a very different way at very different points in your life. I mean, from even just one year to another, you reread the same paragraph and you get something totally different, but it's what's needed for you at that time.
Absolutely. And I've had so many moments, and maybe you can relate, where I read something years ago because I underlined it. So I know I read it, but then I'm reading it again and I'm like, I've never read that before. Or, oh my gosh, I'm getting it on such a different level. Like that's what that meant. And it's like this, you feel like you're getting it for the first time, but clearly you actually did read it in the past because you underlined it. So it literally, it's like layers of understanding. It's layers of going deeper and deeper that it's like it builds upon itself. And as we study it more and more and stick with it, we start to get it in a deeper and deeper way.
Yeah, definitely. Totally agree there. So I want to talk more about the anxiety. So how, I mean, from your end and from your experience of it, how exactly did it help? And I'm going to kind of intervene here for a minute. So obviously with the magazine and my coaching called Happier, Healthier Women, and just life in general, I have a lot of clients and I know of a lot of people who have suffered through depression, go through anxiety, have panic attacks. This is probably the first time I'm going to say this. I've said it in the magazine, but this is probably the first time I'm going to say it in an interview. I went through depression a very long time ago. And sadly, it does run in my family, just like in many different families. And I'm sick and tired of the taboo that's around it. So many people don't talk about what they're going through, and they consider a mental illness as something, oh my God, we can't talk about this. You're absolutely crazy, because that was a conception years ago. And I think part of why I became, or I grew Happier, Healthier Women is because underneath it all, I felt that. And now I'm stepping up to saying, look, I can't cure you. I don't cure. I'm not a doctor. I don't recommend. I don't, etc. But my experience and the people's experience that have come to me, I use A Course in Miracles without them knowing. I apply things that I've learned and things that help me. So I'm interested to find out about your book, about your experience. How is it that it went through for you?
That's a great question. In terms of, so I want to just step back for a moment and just briefly touch upon where anxiety and where depression comes from, because I believe that maybe somebody doesn't have anxiety or depression, but they're looking for something. Like they're just unsettled. They're just not happy. I have a perfect example of a friend who has everything. They have a beautiful family, a great job, and they're like, is this all there is? Like, I feel like I'm, still missing something. And what it is that we're missing, and for some of us, this manifests as depression or anxiety. And I do think that I'd say most of us have some degree of anxiety or fear. It may not come on the extreme end of the continuum like it did for me. It might be much more subtle. We might be like just antsy or not able to sit still, or we feel like we can't, get quiet. We have to be busy. I think we all have this to some degree. And A Course in Miracles is saying that all anxiety, all depression, it comes from a belief in separation from our source.
Mm-hmm.
So for source, use whatever word you're comfortable. If you're comfortable with God, some people I know want to run the other way when they hear that word. I don't talk about a dude with a white beard upstairs orchestrating things. When I talk about God, I'm talking about love with a capital L, a being that loves and is loving and that we are a part of. The Course says that we, again, believe we've separated from our source. We're not separate from one another. And so if we can remember that we have not separated, and not just an intellectual remembering, because I can be like, oh, sure, I'm not separate from my source. And that's not going to change much because that's just up here. The journey is about getting that lesson from up here down here. It's about transferring it from just knowing okay, we're all one, la-di-da, to an actual felt direct experience of that oneness. And as we have the experience of that oneness, that is where, for me, the anxiety started falling away. It literally started shedding like a snake would shed its skin. Some of the fears and worries that I used to have, this is going back now probably 2-3 years ago. I had not flown in quite some time on an airplane. I never could fly alone. I had to go with my husband, and I would either be on medicine or white knuckling a meditation the whole time. I would always write a goodbye note to my family just in case. I had so much flying anxiety. And a couple of years ago, I was on a plane by myself heading out to teach at a retreat. And I was like, something's different. And I was like, I'm not anxious in the slightest bit. And it was not a smooth flight. It was pretty bumpy. And that to me, I was so surprised. That to me was an example of just how anxiety falls away as we remember our true self. And what I mean by our true self is that we are love. We are of a divine nature. We are eternal. We are light. We are joy. This is who we are, but we've buried our awareness of that with layers upon layers of fear. So the journey and healing with what the Course is teaching us and how it helped me get back to peace is to learn how to look at those layers, hand those layers over to our inner guidance system. I call this part of our mind your inner therapist because it's like the inner healer. It could be inner teacher, inner guide. As we hand over these layers of fear to that part of our mind, and we're asking for a shift, we're asking for a shift in perception and a renewed experience of love. As those experiences come, we realize that we don't need to, protect ourselves with all those layers of fear, and who we are can just shine forth. And so that's how the healing journey really happened for me. It was this shedding of fear that came as a result of shedding those layers of fear in my mind to come to know the love that exists within every single one of us. So it's not that I can just access that love in myself alone, which is what I've more recently learned, that the more I can see that divine love in everyone, the more I can recognize it in myself. So this is this beautiful also piece about A Course in Miracles that's very interpersonal, where we need one another in our awakening. We need to be able to see the joy and the light in our most challenging relationships. And it's through healing that and through being willing to see that truth in our brothers that we heal. And by brothers, I mean that in a neutral way, sisters, all of us, right. By seeing our truth, that's how we come to know our oneness, our love.
And well, about the brothers, it's the way that it's written. So the Course in Miracles does speak in very Christian terminology
and masculine.
And very masculine. And I'll admit, being the feminist person that I am, At the beginning, I didn't have an issue. Then I was like, okay, fine, brothers and sisters. And then I was like, whatever. It's a title. I know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to something. So your book is called From Anxiety to Love. And everything that you're talking about is realizing the love that's in you and realizing the love that is outside in the brothers and sisters and everybody in between, because they are a reflection of us and because we're all in this together. And at the end of it all, we are all from one source, meaning he is I and I am him.
Mm-hmm.
My question to you is, and the reason I'm asking is just because of what we talked about at the beginning. For me, I don't see God either as, the man holding the tablet, checking did good, did bad.
Right.
But we have that vision.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, a lot of people also have a vision about the word love.
Mm-hmm.
So help me describe what you mean by finding the love in them, finding the love in yourself. Because I think a lot of people hear the word love and they automatically think Cupid, relationship. My mother didn't love me. That sucks. I don't want to find that. I'm done with. So I think there's a misconception there.
There is. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because when we hear that word love, you're absolutely right. We want to go straight to that special relationship, which is another course term. Relationships, we seek to have fulfillment by that person meeting a need that we perceive that we have. This love that I'm talking about is more of a divine, eternal, and unconditional love. That's really, I think, a key term is unconditional love. The easiest way that I can explain it, I've been taking yoga classes lately and I've been loving them. And at the end of class, what does the teacher always say? But namaste. Mm-hmm. It means the bright light in me honors the bright light in you. And that's really what maybe is an easier way to conceptualize this divine love that I'm talking about. It's the spark of light. That's not just a spark. It's a blazing, glowing, loving, alive light that's within every single one of us. But again, we sort of block our awareness of it because of layers of fear. So that's how I would describe love. It's unconditional. It has, no conditions whatsoever. It always is. It is changeless. And it's light. It's light that exists in every single one of us. Does that help? It's a big thing to try to explain.
I know. Yeah, and that's why I wanted to ask you. No, of course. I mean, I see it in the same way, and the way that I reference to it is, it's not the love that you think you're going to find in the dictionary. It's not that kind of love. It's an actual feeling that you have within you that you sometimes recognize in another person when you're not judging, when you're not labeling, when you're not in your head. Which of course the Course in Miracles, I call what the Course in Miracles called ego. I call it just the human mind. Mm-hmm. That we've been conditioned to fear and see different things the way that they supposedly are in our mind. And the way that I explain people love is, it's that feeling of such happiness and peace within you or within an innocent child, that is the unconditional love. And for example, for me, when I read the Course in Miracles and I do understand what we're talking about and I do apply the lessons and I feel it, that part of me that is unconditional love, that me that is inner me, feels like a blaze. What you just said, it's this feeling of immense, beautiful heat that you just feel like you're sparkling everywhere. It's mm-hmm. like this body is like containing it because I just want to like really spread it. But I think until we don't feel that, we don't get it. That's why we try to at least define it in different ways.
Yeah. Oh, you articulated that so beautifully, that it really does feel like that blaze inside, and that we just want to extend it. And if you think about it, in that feeling, anxiety cannot exist. Depression cannot exist. Pain cannot exist, because this light, this love, this blaze is our truth. And so what the Course is guiding us to, because it has the workbook, which is a lesson every day for 365 days, this is really how to get there, how to have those experiences. The Course says, don't believe a thing that it says. Do the lessons, do it, do what it says. And the experiences will be what makes you believe or keeps you going. So it's the experiences that we are going for through the practices that we do. And I have taken all of the teachings of the course and the practices of the course and everything that helped me with healing anxiety. That's what's in my book, because I know how much of a problem anxiety disorders are. The statistic is that there's 40 million American adults, and I honestly think that's an underestimate. So I wrote this book because I had to. I did not set out to be an author. I literally was getting better, and I was like, I have to write about what's helping me. I had to. Like, that's the best way I can describe it. I just had to. So yeah.
And sometimes we go through things precisely, again, because the point of coming and learning from one another is this. And in today's world, you're doing it through your book. I do it through my coaching. I do it through the magazine. It's helping other people. I do agree. I think the statistic is way low than it really is because of what I said earlier. There's such a taboo, and luckily it's coming down, but there's such a taboo that people don't talk about this. And I mean, in my personal life, I heard of a friend of a friend of a friend that they're like, no, just don't say anything. But, you know, they're going through this. And it's like, why don't you say anything? I mean, it's not that we're going to gossip about them, but it's the fact of they were embarrassed. And that's the part that gets to me, as in, if you can get help, and I'm not talking about only medical or this, because that's besides totally topics aside from what I believe in. But if somebody like us that has gone through it, you that you've written the book, and me that I've been able to go through it myself, and I find different things and different rituals and different spiritual beliefs that have helped me understand and get through a lot of things in your life, we need to break that statistic. And that's why I love that we're talking, because it shows people that it's okay. You're not a psycho. It's nothing bad. You can help yourself. There's people that are there that have gone through it. You can find the light at the end of the tunnel and actually feel all these blazing love, unconditional things that we're talking about, because it literally feels good. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people that go through the anxiety and the panic and the depression and all the other things, you forget how good it feels to feel good.
Mm-hmm. You do. Well said. And I can't tell you how many people, when I started publicly sharing my story, which has been for a while, I've been talking about this way before the book came out, but people that maybe are acquaintances on Facebook, let's say, that I went to high school with or elementary school, when the book was coming out and I was sharing more, that's when they were maybe more noticing what I was up to. And I've gotten so many notes from people that I know from the past who have said, I had no idea. Me too. I've been struggling with anxiety. I've been struggling with depression for years, and I had no idea. And it's because we don't talk about it enough, because there is that embarrassment. And so you're absolutely right that this is a critical conversation, that if we could be more open about this and be more willing to speak, that is going to help others, because we're going to find, number one, that we're not alone, and others will see that they're not alone as well.
Yeah, perfect. So I want to wrap up. Where do people, can they reach out to you? Where can they get the book? How do they reach out to you if they want to talk?
So the book is available wherever books are sold. It's on Amazon. It's, Barnes and Noble. My website is the same title of my book. So it's FromAnxietyToLove.com. And through my website, you'll see, I just have lots of resources. There's meditations. There's a crash course on undoing anxiety with A Course in Miracles, and all my social media links as well. I'm on, all the platforms. So FromAnxietyToLove.com would be the place to go.
Perfect. I loved speaking with you. I loved learning more about where the book came from, why you, just the fact that we're sharing. I think it's definitely a step forward. And I think it's a step forward that, obviously, I have nothing against men. I love them to pieces. And they go through it as well. But I think a lot of women go through this alone because they keep it hush hush. And I think that's one of the reasons that this platform of mine exists. Because as women, we come and we help each other one by one as a sisterhood. Mm-hmm. And I loved meeting you. And I'm happy that you went through it. Definitely that you were open and courageous enough to share, because it takes a step forward. So I congratulate you and I thank you.
Thank you. And I want to say too that I don't regret any of the anxiety difficulties that I've had whatsoever, to be on the other side, to be able to help others. And if we can look at our challenges as opportunities to grow, everybody can get to that place of being able to get to the other side. So thank you, Angie. It's been absolutely a joy to talk to you.
The same. Thank you, hon.
Mwah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.